Hello and welcome to Reaching for the Moon, presented by Everglades Moon Local Council, Florida chapter of Covenant of the Goddess. COG supports individual works by its covens, members, and local councils. It's a vibrant network of a myriad of Wiccan and witchy resources, religious support, friendships, service opportunities, and more. To find out more, visit our website, emlc.net, our Facebook page, facebook.com/Everglades Moon, or Twitter, @EMLC-tweets.
Hello everyone, this is Lady Bridget, and welcome to episode 29 for Imbolc 2017. We have a pretty packed show for you today. We're going to start with an interview with Lord Gwydion, who's a thespian. Yes, that means person who works in theater. And he's going to talk about Peter and the Starcatcher, which sounds like a really pagan play to me, and I think you'll find the interview very interesting. After that, we're going to have Pande tell us about how to make candle holders out of mason jar lids and alum powder, and it sounds pretty fascinating. We'll have pictures and links on the show notes. After that, I'm starting a new series on mythology, the myths of Imbolc. I'm going to start with one that's pretty obscure. I'm not going to spoil it. You'll have to listen to find out which one it is. And then Riekin brings us another segment of It'll Grow on You, and he's going to tell us how to bug off. No, seriously. He's going to tell us really effective ways of insect and pest control. And then lastly, we are going to have another delightful FooDoo episode with Qabal, and he's going to tell us all about using poppy seeds in recipes. So, we also have music, and our first musical selection is from Crow Women, and it's called Calling the Elements. It's from their album Crow Magic, and you can find Crow Women's music on CD Baby and on Amazon. Enjoy.
Deep down, deep into the earth my roots go. Draw up Earth Mother power, she will help me grow. Rise up, fill me, give me life, strengthen me, a mighty tree, nourishing power from below. Earth, air, fire, water, come to me, Gaia's daughter, come to me, beard and sun, ancient spirits, mighty ones. Bright sky, eagles take to fly, east wind blow. Sunrise, far-seeing eyes, blessed sight to know. The path, the song, forever new, like the dawn goes on and on, calling me, shows the way to go. Earth, air, fire, water, come to me, Gaia's daughter, come to me, beard and sun, ancient spirits, mighty ones. Fire flare rising in the sky, your fearsome glow. Deep down from Pele's womb, pushing from below. Toast me, burn me, consume me, the catalyst for phoenix flight. Light the night, let your power grow. Earth, air, fire, water, come to me, Gaia's daughter, come to me, beard and sun, ancient spirits, mighty ones. Life blood pour from clouds to earth below. Flash flood won't be denied. Cleanse me, relentless flow. Shape me, make me, carry me deep within myself. The shadow place, I will face what I need to know. Earth, air, fire, water, come to me, Gaia's daughter, come to me, beard and sun, ancient spirits, mighty ones. Earth, air, fire, water, come to me, Gaia's daughter, come to me, beard and sun, ancient spirits, mighty ones. Earth, air, fire, water, come to me. Gaia's daughter, come to me. Mirrodin sun, ancient spirits, mighty ones. Earth, air, fire, water, come to me. Gaia's daughter, come to me. Mirrodin sun, ancient spirits, mighty ones. Guard our circle till we're done.
This is Lady Bridget, and I'm here at Turning the Tides, and I'm here with Lord Gwydion, who is a member of Everglades Moon Local Council through Moondrake Covenant Grove, and you have a very interesting, it's actually a side job, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you get paid for this.
Yes, I do.
Which is really cool. And I bet a lot of people would wish they would get paid for it too. So why don't you tell us about your love?
Well, I discovered theater when I was 17 years old. I actually got tricked into taking a part in a show that I was going to be a stagehand for a children's theater company, and a friend of mine said, no, she needed somebody to play Bill Sykes in Oliver.
Oh.
And since everybody else were children, and Pagan and Nancy were, high school age, a 12-year-old threatening Pagan would not have worked out very well. So she talked me into it and made it basically like I was doing her a favor. So reluctantly I took the part, and from that day forward fell madly in love with theater. So I did, several shows, and I did some backstage things over the next many years. And then I kind of went on hiatus for whatever reason for about 20 years until a few years ago, and then a friend of mine, again, invited me to a party where she knew that a director was going to be at that was putting on a show and needed a character. And so basically I kind of got railroaded once again and set foot on stage for the first time in 20 years. And it's been going. I've been acting and performing pretty steadily for the last 3 years now.
And tell me about the production that you just finished.
We just finished a production that is fairly fresh off Broadway called Peter and the Starcatcher. And it's basically grown-up origin story of Peter Pan. It's actually produced by Disney. And we were the first theater company in Florida to perform it.
What's the name of your theater company?
Theater of the Collaborative Arts. It's a brand new theater company formed in West Palm Beach. And basically, Peter and the Starcatcher was our inaugural show.
Cool. So what is Peter and the Starcatcher about?
It tells the story of how Peter Pan was an orphan, along with several others, and through pirate attacks and a shipwreck and a mysterious substance called star stuff, becomes the Peter Pan that we know. On the island he becomes marooned on, which becomes the island we know as Neverland.
Oh, so this is how Peter Pan became Peter Pan.
Yes.
And you were telling me that there are a lot of pagan themes running throughout
yes,
this.
there are. Obviously, one that most people will be familiar with is Pan. Mm-hmm. It tells how he got the name and what it's supposed to mean, and it does mean that he is connected to every living thing on the island and is part of the island. He wasn't that way when he got there, but through exposure to this mystical star stuff,
and that's what changed him.
It changes him. And he is given his name, Pan, by a mysterious mermaid called Teacher. And at one point she lets him know that she used to be a Scottish salmon.
The salmon of knowledge.
Exactly.
That's really cute.
Also in the story, there are people who are royal nobility charged by Queen Victoria with the task of hunting down this star stuff which falls to Earth on falling stars. And it changes people, good or bad, into what they want to be. So their job is to hunt it down and destroy it before it can fall into the wrong hands. And my character is Lord Leonard Astor, who is one of the Starcatchers. And my daughter on stage is Molly, and she is my apprentice. And actually, she comes of age and does most of the action in the story because she wants to be like Daddy.
Right.
So, it's not a musical, but there are several musical numbers in it. It's a strange little play. At no point does any actor really get a break backstage. If you're not playing your particular character then you're kind of like a Greek chorus. You are narrating in character, bits of the story, bits of the narration. Or you might be playing scenery.
Right,
there's no
props.
set, there's no scenery. Everything is either the actors, for example, a mirror or a room is basically just people holding a rope in a shape.
Right.
A shipwreck is basically people standing on stage and reacting to the ship rocking back and forth, or splitting in two in this case, in the middle of a hurricane.
So you have to be pretty good at acting in order to portray those kind of things and get that across and still be in character.
Yes, and one of the things that's interesting is this show is a very physical show. There is a lot of physical movement and activity and stunts. First day of rehearsal, we were all issued a pair of knee pads.
Very wise.
And that actually is the same thing they did on Broadway. We tried to stay very close to the Broadway rendition visually and style-wise. We all brought our own personality to our characters and that sort of thing. But as far as the visual styling, there's a uniqueness to the storytelling in this show because it lacks sets, it lacks scenery, it has lighting, it has some music, and it has us. Mm-hmm. And we are telling the story.
It must be pretty exhausting, though, not to get any break at all off stage.
Other than the intermission, which was 15 minutes. And at that point, we were rushing around in the dressing rooms, changing into our costumes for the opening number of Act 2, which I will not spoil the surprise of that one, but it's a lot of fun.
Okay. So is it all... How many people are in the theater troupe?
Well, in this particular cast, there were 12.
12.
Which is traditionally what they use for Peter and the Starcatcher.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the size... the theater troupe itself is like loosely, we're all kind of the same group in the Palm Beach area, although we have people that came up from Miami for this show to perform in it. But, you tend to work with the same people over and over again, even though you're not always all in the same shows together.
Right.
And, people go and do other things with other theater groups as well. But in this particular cast, there were 12, a good handful of which I've worked with before, and some were new. And luckily for me, the girl that played my daughter, she's worked with some of the others before. I've never worked with her before, but we clicked instantly, and that's one of the things that the director looked at, when he went to cast, was we had already formed a bond. Mm-hmm. And that played very well on stage as father and daughter.
Yeah. That's really important, too. Sometimes you can't really fake that.
You can at times, but not to that extent. I mean, if you don't believe it, the audience doesn't believe it.
Right.
So even if you hate the person you're playing opposite, we didn't have any of that in this particular production, but even if you hate the person you're playing opposite, and it does happen, you have to believe during the scenes that you and they are someone else.
Right.
And that you feel what your character feels for them. And like I said, if you don't believe it, the audience won't either. The neat thing about theater is the roots of theater are in ritual.
Of course. I was just thinking that you have to be a really good ritualist in order to be a good actor, I would think.
And that occurred to me too.
Versa.
When I said I had been off the stage for 20 years, but I hadn't really, because I've been like composing coven rituals and doing things like that and memorizing things, for the past 20 years. So I really never got out of practice. And I taught quite a few theater techniques to my own coven students over time.
Exactly. And, and I have found that teaching people how to project and teaching people a little bit of vocal control and, small things.
Oh, even telling them, even if you don't require them to memorize the words in a ritual, I tell them at least stand in front of a mirror and recite them, read them enough times that you become familiar, so you have to glance at them instead of read them cold from a piece of paper.
Right. And we always did rehearsal.
Yes.
And I always made them read it out loud, because surprisingly enough, sometimes what's on the page looks great, and then when you go to read it, it tongue trips. And
sometimes when you just sit around and read the ritual together, like in a rehearsal, just as on stage, or in ritual, I've seen, we all went through a rehearsal and we all said our appropriate prayers or invocations or parts. And then once you get in the actual ritual, just like what happens when you get into an actual performance, the emotion comes out of you right in the middle of the ritual. And the words are said with much more of a charge and much more of an impact than they did when you were just cold reading them.
Exactly.
So, and the same thing happens on stage. You hopefully have worked hard at rehearsal, you know, and you've got your lines down and everything, but still, when you get out on the stage, something else comes out.
Well, there's an energy exchange as well.
And you react. You feel the audience, too.
Yeah.
They are part of it. And especially the show like this, we required their imagination, which kind of makes them part of the story, because we didn't have a set. We didn't have a lot of props. So they had to imagine everything. And we tell them that in the opening narrative. Mm-hmm. We tell them, you know, imagine these ropes and boards of the British Empire, was one of the opening lines. You know, and we are lords and captains and mothers. And so, you know, you're telling the audience, we want your imagination as part of the story. And you feel it when you're on the stage. If the audience is not responsive, you tend to come off a little flat. Or you have to be very, very good. And even then, you're not feeling it.
Well, you can feel when the audience is engaged. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing in ritual. You can feel when the participants are engaged. Mm-hmm. Or when they're just kind of like standing there waiting for what's the next thing that's going to happen. Whether it's in ritual or whether it's in theater, involve them somehow. Yes, absolutely. You know, some plays are just straight up narrative, and that's fine. You know, you don't have to address the audience or interact with them. But you still require their emotional participation for it to work. Mm-hmm. You have to take them out of the world that they live in and into the world, you know, which basically you're standing in a box with a light on you in front of a crowd. Right. And it's their job to imagine the world that you're trying to tell them the story of. Right. And it's no different from the butterflies you get in your stomach when you're performing or public speaking in any other setting. Do you have any tips or tricks that you use to get over what we call stage fright? And it happens all the time. I do. And I actually came up with this long before I'd like to say long before I was pagan, but, you know, like the rest of us, we only realized we were pagan and always were. There's a name for that. Yes. Yes, exactly. When I was 17 and I was doing Oliver for the first time, you know, I used to do meditations and I used to do, you know, visualizations and things like that even then. One of the things that I would do right before I went on is I'd stand backstage, I'd try to find a quiet spot, and I would imagine all the nervous energy that was just making me jumpy running around my body, like little lightning bolts and electric arcs running up and down my body. And then I would take one hand, palm up, and hold it as low as I possibly could in front of me, and the other hand palm down and hold it over my head. And I would slowly bring them together, and bring them together, and bring them together. And I would imagine that I was compressing the bolts of energy. And so they became brighter and more concentrated and brighter and more concentrated until they met somewhere near my solar plexus. Mm-hmm. And then I would turn my hands so that instead of being horizontal, you know, one above and one below, they were across from each other, almost forming a sphere. And I would imagine like all that energy was now so concentrated that it became, you know, one solid ball of light. It became a star. And then I would just spread my hands and let that star shine. Nice. And then I would step forward. That's a great visualization. And it works, and I've taught it to other people over the years. I taught it to kids when I used to work with the children's theater, and I've even taught it to some of my castmates recently. Because everyone gets stage fright. I don't care how long you've been at it, because, you know, it's live theater. Any number of things can go wrong. Mm-hmm. And just like ritual, any number, you know, it can start pouring in the middle of your ritual, or the candles can blow over. Oh, well, it's not a good ritual if at least one thing doesn't go wrong. No. One thing has to guaranteed go wrong. And then you're done. Because you know, okay, well, now we had that, and now we can move forward and we can stop worrying about what's going to go wrong. So, you know, and the funny thing is, this particular show that I worked on, which we are doing a revival of in February, has a lot of transformational and archetypal themes. On the surface, it looks quirky, it looks silly, it looks funny. But when I really started looking at it, you know, from a pagan perspective, when I really started looking at it from an archetypal perspective, there were layer upon layer that I don't even know if some of the people who were in the show were getting. But it was in there. Very cool. Every show, when you're an actor, is transformative. Every show is a ritual, especially when you repeat it 10 times over. But this particular one had a very profound and transformational effect. Still kind of exploring that. And you're doing it again? We are. There's a community center focused on the arts in West Palm Beach called Center. Now I can't think of the name offhand. I want to say Center of the Creative Arts, and I could be right about that. But in any case, they have a new theater building, and so we will be doing a short revival run of the show
to kind of inaugurate their theater building.
Nice.
Our producer was adamant. She checked with everybody first that we have the same cast. She wants the same show. Mm-hmm. She doesn't want to recast anyone. So we will all be getting together again in a couple of months and doing it again.
Can you be sure and send me the website so I can put that in the show notes?
I absolutely
will. So if
will.
anybody wants to go see the show, they can get tickets.
We have a Facebook page you can look at. It's Theater of Collaborative Arts.
Uh-huh.
Or, for short, we call it TCA. But and also we're affiliated. This particular show was jointly produced by another theater company that I'm also involved in. They've been around for a while, Entr'acte Theatrics.
Very nice.
So this was jointly produced by both, and almost everybody that was in this show has also worked with them. So it's kind of like hiving off, really.
Nice.
Well, I look forward to some of the things that we are thinking about doing in the future. I can't think right offhand, but the director has told me some of the different ideas he's had. I have done The Fantastics with him before, which is another show that heavily involves audience participation. If the audience's imagination is not engaged, the show doesn't go over well. And it's a strange little show in its own right. He wants to bring that back and do it again. And I already told him, count me in.
Mm-hmm. Well, I find it so fascinating, the overlay between, ritual, public ritual for other people and public performance in theater, and how the skills can translate between the two.
They absolutely do. I've had, people over the years, I've been in community rituals. I've been in my own coven. I've had my own coven host rituals. And I've had people compliment us, how well composed we were and that sort of thing. And the secret is I've just brought my knowledge of theater with me.
A little theater training goes a long way. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. And in fact, it might not be a bad idea for people who are wanting to be good ritualists to take a little bit of theater training.
Oh, yeah. Drama and elocution especially.
Oh, yeah.
If you're a musical coven, then take some vocal lessons as well. Mm-hmm. And dance, you can work all kinds of things into ritual. And this is one thing I've always taught my students is like, anything can be a ritual or a spell. You could paint a painting and make it a spell.
Yeah.
A dance can be a ritual or a spell. My coven has done a ritual in entire silence with nothing but gestures.
Yes, we have too. In fact, that's one of their assignments. They have to do different new moons at home by themselves because we do full moons together. And some of their assignments are do a new moon in complete silence, do a new moon in dance, do a new moon in music. And they have to then journal what that experience was like.
One time, amazingly to me, I was a little annoyed with my coven because, we'd been working together for a while, but it seemed like no one could remember the invocations, time in and time out. And I said, if we're not going to say the right words, then tonight we're not going to say any. The whole thing is silent. And I thought it was kind of a scolding kind of a thing. And it didn't turn out that way because I'll tell you what, that was one of the most powerful and profound rituals we ever had because nothing was spoken at all, not a word. It was in complete silence. We had background music playing, but that was it. The ritual was done in complete silence. And every member of the coven, myself included, were absolutely stunned at the energy that was produced by that ritual.
When you're not worrying about focusing on
And another thing that we did, and you actually witnessed this, is early on, as a help, to help us memorize, the different invocations. We used to have one person would invoke the element of air and one person would invoke the element of water. We use a formula, so each one is, it's not an identical invocation, but each one is a similar format, and with some words that are different for each of the quarters or for the Lord and the Lady. But what we started doing is I said, well, let's just say them all together in unison, and so that it becomes practice.
Yes.
And we did that, and again, we were blown away by hearing all of our voices speaking together in unison, every invocation. And then we did that in public ritual, and other people were just kind of blown away by that. Yeah. Because it's powerful. It has a powerful effect.
Our coven started doing that too. We used to have one person just cast, and then what would happen is we would say it with them because I wanted them to get the cadence right. Because in ours, the cadence, the meter, how, it's not just the words, but it's how the words are said and where the pauses happen, and they have to be in a certain way. And we would say it all together. And it did. And they liked it so much that we just started doing it that way.
It became tradition. That's the same thing that happened with us.
Right, because originally it was just a training tool. And then,
exactly.
They realized it was so much more participatory when you were actually speaking and breathing as one.
Yes.
Instead of just one person.
And you feel like the waves of energy with the words.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things that I have toyed with the idea of, and I haven't gotten around to it yet, but obviously not this Turning the Tides, but at one of these Turning the Tides very soon, I want to do a workshop on the ancient ritual origins of theater.
Nice. I'll definitely attend that one. Speaking of ritual, I think they're going to start the opening ritual very soon.
You are correct, my lady.
I thank you so much for this. This is really entertaining, and I look forward to seeing your show.
And definitely when we do the revival, I will save you a comp ticket.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hey everyone, this is Pande, and it's time for another one of Pande's Pagan projects. I know it can be hard to find candle holders that are the right color that fit my needs, whether I am putting them on my elemental altars or my ancestor altars or on one of the other altars I have around my house. With today's project, you'll be able to make an entire collection of crystal tea light holders. Big thanks to BuzzFeed for this how-to. We'll be linking to their instructional video on our website for those of you who are like me and need to watch the process. To make your own collection of crystal tea light holders, you will need a mason jar lid and the band that goes around it, a hot glue gun, a small nail, a hammer, wire and wire cutters, super glue, alum powder, water, food coloring, a heat-safe container, clear coat spray, and a tea light candle. Now you can get alum powder in a bunch of different places. My go-to place is going to be Amazon, but you can find it on a bunch of different websites, especially ones that sell pickling spices. So to get started, you'll take your hot glue gun and attach the mason jar lid to the band. And the lid should be flipped over so that the silver side faces inside the band, because this is going to form the bottom of your candle holder that you're going to use to rest your tea light on. Use a hammer and a nail to poke a hole through the center of the top of the lid. Make sure to do this on some surface you don't mind accidentally putting a nail hole in. Obviously don't do this on your dining room table unless you're cool with that. Cut 10 inches of wire and thread about an inch of it through the lid. Fold it back against the lid and tape it down. Line the band with super glue and roll it in a bowl of alum powder to coat the entire outside of the band. And you'll want to let that dry for about an hour or two. Next, bring 2 cups of water to a boil. Then add 1 cup of alum powder and a tablespoon of the food coloring of your choice to this boiling water. And you can play with all different colors here. You can use the regular food coloring that you can get at your local supermarket. Pour the results of your boiling water into a heat-safe container that is wide enough for your lid to fit into and deep enough that you can suspend your lid in it without the lid touching the bottom of the container. So if you have a tall vase or vase, if it's not that fancy, you can totally use that. Wrap the wire attached to the mason jar around a pencil and lower it into the container. Again, you want the leftover wire so that the whole lid is submerged in the water, but not hitting the bottom of the cup. After leaving the lid submerged overnight, pull it out. Dump the mixture out and replace the lid into that container to let it dry. The whole drying process should take about 20 minutes. Carefully cut the wire as close to the crystal as possible. Then apply a clear coat to seal in your color. Then flip it over and place a tea light candle in the center of the lid, and it will be magic. I hope you've enjoyed this project, and I can't wait to see what color candle light holders you guys make. Feel free to share your finished candle holders with us on our website at emlc.net. Blessed be.
And now we're ready for a song. Between by Mama Gina from her album I Remember Love. You can learn more about Mama Gina and purchase her music at mamagina.com.
Somewhere between the boy and the girl, between truth and pain, somewhere between confusion and sure that this soul will burn in that flame, somewhere between the heart and the mind and the feeling, there's something so wrong. The body betrays, no words can say who's been here all along. Somewhere between a woman and man, the world out there and the real deep inside. Living between, it ain't no way to live, but we do what we must to survive. Somewhere between the religion and the spirit divine in your breast, all caught up in that illusion that what everyone else thinks is best. Yesterday's shame, it has shaped me. Tomorrow's a day to come clean. Today will you love me? Please don't judge me, 'cause I'm just learning to love me, and I'm not ready yet to be seen. Let me stay here. Between somewhere between who I have been and the person I'm learning to be. Oh, I gotta live this. I don't need your forgiveness, and I make no apology. Yesterday's shame, it has shaped me. Tomorrow's day to come clean. Today when you love me, please don't judge me, 'cause I'm just learning to love me, and I'm not ready yet to be seen. Let me stay here.
This is Lady Bridget, and I'm introducing a new series to the podcast. I'm going to do a series on the different mythologies that are associated with the different Sabbats. So I'll pick a different mythology every Sabbath and we'll explore it. I don't have a catchy name for this series yet, so maybe someone can email me and suggest it, or put a comment on the show notes at emlc.net, or you can email me at ladybridget@gmail.com. So most people would assume that being Bridget, that I would start with Bridget, but nope, I'm going to try and pull a little something more obscure. I'm going to talk about, well, I'll tell you in a second. Imbolc, Oimelc, and Candlemas are all names for the holiday that happens halfway between winter solstice and the spring equinox. Now, depending on when the sun enters 15 degrees Aquarius, it can occur sometime between February 2nd and February 6th. But one tradition that has evolved from Imbolc happens every year on February 2nd and is celebrated in typical American fashion with TV coverage, and it even has its own movie. Have you guessed it? It's Groundhog Day. Now, you may ask, how does Groundhog Day tie in with Imbolc? Why is it celebrated on February 2nd? Since the day occurs halfway between Yule and Ostara, it was known as the time to determine how much longer the winter weather would last. German settlers in the 1700s came to Pennsylvania, and they brought with them this tradition of Candlemas Day, which has its roots in our pagan celebration of Imbolc. The English who were already living there mispronounced the German word for German, which is Deutsch, so it sounded like Dutch, and these folks became known as the Pennsylvania Dutch. My father's family actually is from that area, and so I have a certain affinity for and curiosity about these people and their customs. Another of the old Candlemas Day customs was to bless candles and give them to people to light and put in their windows as a way of brightening up the dark of the winter days. In my own coven's tradition, we bless the candles that we are going to use for the coming year. So we just have one of each color, and then those can be used to add wax to whatever magic we're going to do for the rest of the year. And that way we bring the energy of our coven and the Sabbath of new beginnings to all of our magic. So we would just bless one candle of every color, and then when you're going to do a spell, if you're going to use candles for the spell, you could drip a little of the wax from that candle onto the candle you're going to use for the spell, and bring in the energy. The custom on Groundhog Day is that the groundhog is just coming out from hibernation at this time, and if he sees his shadow, that is, if the sun is out and it's sunny, then there are going to be 6 more weeks of winter cold and snow. But if the day is cloudy, then the weather will turn moderate and the winter will be ending early. Now, for years, I wondered why it wasn't the opposite, right? Surely a cloudy day would mean bad weather, and a sunny day would mean good weather? But that is not the case in Pennsylvania and parts of New England where I've lived. Sunny days in the winter mean high pressure and cold. Cloudy days mean lower pressure, and lower pressure brings the spring rains. So I guess if you think about it that way, it makes more sense. Now, when the Germans used to watch a badger on this date, but when they migrated to Pennsylvania to settle, there were no badgers there, and so they decided that the groundhog was the only animal with similar habits. So it went from watching a badger to watching a groundhog. The earliest reference to this is dated February 4th, 1841, and Pennsylvania's first official celebration of the date was on February 2nd, 1886, in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, of course. Columbia Pictures made a movie called Groundhog Day, which was released in 1993, and stars Bill Murray. And actually, it's one of my favorite movies. You can easily catch a rebroadcast of this movie in February, as at least one station is bound to play it. Netflix also offers it in their DVD rentals in case anyone hasn't seen this movie, and I'm sure you can find it in other places too. The holiday does play a major role in the movie, and it's just a fun one to see overall, and it has a feel-good ending. You're not going to cry, I promise. The groundhog, by the way, is also called a woodchuck, and it's in the squirrel family. So if you are a squirrel fan, it's just another reason to love this holiday. I invite you to learn more about Groundhog Day and maybe even find a way to include some of the lore in your Imbolc celebrations. If you have a mythos that you'd like me to explore, feel free to leave a comment on our website at emlc.net, and I'll do my best to research it and explore it on the appropriate podcast. Or, if you would like to research it and share it with us, please do. Blessed Imbolc, everybody, and happy Groundhog's Day. So this is Lady Bridget, and I'm here with Lord Riekin. And Lord Riekin, would you tell us what you're going to discuss in this episode?
Well, it's kind of in the moment, as it were. Ants and other bugs and their control has been a topic here lately, and so I'm going to just talk a little bit about natural ways and some not quite so natural ways to repel ants and such. Keep in mind, I'm not totally anti-insecticide. I used to be an Orkin man. Insecticides, pesticides have their place. For minor things, though, we can probably do without them. We've touched on natural mosquito control before. I'm going to touch on it again for just a minute, but we're not going to dwell on it for very long. Essential oils make good natural insect repellents, despite everything that every study shows. You know, when the researchers actually put on DEET versus this, that, or the other natural essential oil, whether it be in a carrier oil base or in a cream solution or whatever, the essential oils usually come up short. The essential oil that least comes up short is lemon eucalyptus oil, and that does not mean eucalyptus oil plus lemon oil mixed together. That means the oil of the Eucalyptus citradora tree out of Australia. There is a eucalyptus, which is lemon eucalyptus, and for whatever reason, that works the best. What about citronella? That's great. So many other things. Rose geraniums, clove oil, patchouli, geranium oil, cedar, fennel, other types of eucalyptus. Most of the herbs and essential oils will usually have some thymol or some one of the other strong repellent oils as part of their makeup. Garlic, taken internally or externally, works. There are those who say that vinegar sprayed on the body from the outside works as well. I don't have any personal experience of that, and vinegar is very dry into the skin, so it's probably not a great idea. And you certainly can't use it with an essential oil, or well, you can put vinegar with essential oils. We'll cover that in a moment.
But I don't think I'd want to spray vinegar on me.
Yeah,
I'd rather smell like eucalyptus than smell like vinegar.
I can't help but agree.
Now, going back to the rose geranium, that would smell pretty nice.
Yes, but rose geranium is really better for ticks and fleas. I used to grow a lot of rose geranium, and I would harvest and dry the leaves, and then I would grind them up between my palms and sprinkle them in the dog's bed. And she loved jumping in her bed after I did that, you know.
And it doesn't hurt to rub it on the animal, too.
And you can rub it straight on her. Yep, you can just rub a leaf between your hands and stroke your dog or cat, and that works, too. Because we have to remember that chrysanthemums, true chrysanthemum, is the source of pyrethrin, and which is a naturally occurring substance. You can buy, when you go into a Chinese food market, they have big bags of chrysanthemum leaves, or chrysanthemum flower leaves, and they use it all kinds of ways, but one of the ways they use it is to sprinkle it around for insect control. It's like pyrethrum on the natural side. You can make a tea out of that and spray that out of a sprayer for pest control. You can use vinegar and most of these essential oils and use that for pest control, not on your body, but rather you can clean with the white vinegar, and you can put essential oils, in a sense, with the white vinegar, and you can clean your counters with it, and at the same time you're putting down a barrier to pest, which leads us to Four Thieves vinegar. Four Thieves vinegar is, well, apple cider vinegar. Yeah, a 32-ounce bottle of apple cider vinegar, 2 to 3 tablespoons of dried sage, 2 to 3 tablespoons dried rosemary, 2 to 3 tablespoons dried lavender, 2 to 3 tablespoons dried thyme and 2 to 3 tablespoons dried mint. All put together, shook twice a day for 2 weeks. And that's 4 thieves vinegar.
And then you strain it.
And you strain it, yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Uh-huh.
Why dried rather than fresh?
Because the fresh has a lot of moisture. When you use freshly dried, you're getting just the high concentration of essential oils that didn't evaporate when the water dried out.
Oh.
And you can break it up easier and such. It's easier to extract the essential oils from the dried rather than the fresh.
So it dissolves better in the vinegar.
It dissolves better in the vinegar. If you do the same thing with just white vinegar, well then presto, you've got a magical cleanser for your altar and your kitchen cabinets and your counter. And it's a good insect repellent, particularly ants. You see ants, wouldn't you rather spray them with that mixture and then wipe them up afterwards? Because it'll wipe them out in a hurry.
Wow.
4 thieves vinegar, if you're going to use it, you can dilute it by half with water, the formula I just gave you. If you've done it right and you've shook it long enough and it's strong enough, you can dilute it by half with water so you can stretch it a little further.
Yeah, so it'll go twice as far.
So it'll go twice as far. Yeah.
So you can actually spray the counters down with that, and you don't have to leave it. You can wipe it back up.
You wipe it back up.
And it'll still leave a barrier.
Well, it's mostly you're going to get wiped up, but you just kind of stay away. You wipe the edge, and then you spray it again on the edge, and you wipe a little bit away, but you leave a little strip along the edges of things.
I see.
And acts as a barrier for the ants. But it's also just good to, oh my gosh, ants, squirt, squirt. Ha, die, you little boogers. Yeah, I'm all about nature, but outside. Once you cross the threshold, you're in my territory. Sorry, guys. That's the way I look at it. I want to talk about moths and fruit flies. Fruit flies, you take a 2-liter bottle from a soda bottle and you cut it right where the funnel taper starts. Flip it around, put it in. You now got yourself a trap. You can bait that trap with apple cider vinegar and honey, old wine, banana peels, fresh fruit peels or chunks of fresh fruit of any sort. I know everybody has an egg fruit tree in their yard, but I happened to notice I brought in an egg fruit, and they made a beeline for it. Now, they're bright yellow, but it has to be more than that. That stuff must give off a pheromone like crazy, but they made such a beeline for it. I mean, I'm standing right there, and it's like, really, right in front of me? So it's like I dropped the seed into one of my traps, and that trap was super successful within an hour or so.
So the fruit flies fly down in the nose of the soda bottle.
They fly into
and then
the funnel.
fly, and then that goes into the body of the soda bottle, and then they can't fly back out.
Yeah, 1 in 25 or 30 will accidentally find its way out, but it doesn't turn around and go, "Hey guys, follow me."
Yeah,
it's
they're
like
not that smart.
They leave them to their own devices. But yeah, because we're in South Florida, we keep the house open a lot.
Right.
There's a lot of fruit trees in the yard.
Right.
You have fruit in the house, there's going to be fruit flies.
They
There's no way
especially
around
love
it.
bananas.
I mean, we've got loquats, we've got egg fruit, we've got Barbados cherry. I mean, we don't have citrus anymore, sadly enough. We've got avocados, we've got mangoes, we've got banana trees.
Right. So before you all
We
get
get fruit
jealous,
flies.
they do come with a price, and the price is fruit flies.
Fruit flies sometimes, yeah. If you want to keep the house open. I mean, if you want to hermetically seal it with the air conditioner on all the time.
Heck no.
Not much of a problem then, but
Yeah.
otherwise.
No, even then you still get them in the house because people open the door and they just love the bananas. And I don't know if they breed on the bananas or what, but anytime I bring home
just
bananas from the store.
certain chemicals in bananas are more attractive to them.
Yeah. So with the fruit flies, you can't just leave them in the trap, right?
Well, no, I do every few days as the number of fruit flies in the trap begins to multiply, I go outside and I release them. Now, that's not really nature on my part. That's just practicality, because if you leave the fruit flies in the fruit fly trap too long,
they breed,
and you get a higher percentage finding their way out of the little funnel in the middle.
So that kind of defeats the purpose.
It defeats the purpose.
Trap.
And if you drink enough soda, I mean, the thing is, we just don't drink too much soda, so I have to make that 2-liter bottle last a while.
Yeah.
But if we drank a lot more soda, you can whip out one of these traps in about 45 seconds to a minute, and you could throw away your trap every 2 or 3 days if you wanted to. It's just that in this household, a 2-liter soda bottle is gold.
Yeah, we don't really drink that much soda.
No.
Usually we'll have Sabbath or a meeting or somebody will bring soda
will
to the
bring it.
house, and then that's how we end up with a bottle.
Yeah, then we finish it off, and then it's like, ooh, what can I do with this one?
Yeah.
They don't go to waste around here.
Recycle, reuse.
Yeah, they're considered highly prized items. And now for moths, we have birds, so we have seed moths. And seed moths, they're not a big annoyance, but
Yes, they are.
when they're flying in front of the television, they really
They fly
are.
in front of your face. They fly in front of me when I'm knitting. They fly between me and the TV. It's very distracting.
Well, that's because you do all that within 3 feet of the bird cage.
Well,
But
yeah.
at any rate, you can also make a moth trap, and they are particularly partial to apple cider vinegar and banana peel. And the moth trap isn't made the same way as the fruit fly trap. You can either make a moth trap by simply leaving an open container with tall sides with something in the bottom, and they like wine as well.
Mm-hmm.
They're like the others. You can use the same formulations, any fruit bits and such, but they're more attracted to a liquid, and they drown themselves. It's not a matter of trapping them. They're not bright enough to trap. I mean, fruit flies seem to be brighter, but they'll land in a liquid and can't get out.
So you put, like, say, a banana peel and a lot of wine and some water so that it's...
Well, the actual... No, I said banana peel and apple cider vinegar, dear.
Oh.
They seem to be very partial to that, thinned out a little bit. But like I said, they also... It's rare that you leave a glass of wine half full overnight in this household without a moth floating in it in the morning. So,
Well, first of all, it's
that
rare
works.
that you leave a half a
Half
glass of wine in
yeah.
this household.
Yeah. It's usually because there's just been too many
Somebody will
glasses
finish
prior
it.
to that one.
Yeah.
But it does happen. Back to, to mosquitoes for just a minute. I hadn't thought about it before, but somebody suggested Vicks Vapor Rub, which, right, it's got all the right chemicals in it.
That's
so if you
true.
don't mind having clear sinuses, which
Yeah.
who minds that too much, a touch of Vicks Vapor Rub behind your ear,
Uh-huh.
it may not be the sexiest way to get a mate, but it's a great way to keep rid of mosquitoes. I should mention, too,
Dryer sheets.
dryer sheets, yes.
Dryer sheets, we tie a dryer sheet, don't laugh, around my bra strap or on the chair or around your ankle because they love your ankles.
They love your ankles because they're rather partial. Different breeds of mosquitoes are different to body temperatures, and some of the most aggressive mosquitoes here in South Florida like a slightly cooler body temperature. And the temperature of your ankles is one of the lowest temperatures in your body. And so they tend to congregate down there. It's right in their range. It's in the range they really like, is at your ankles, at your wrist.
So tie a
sometimes your
dryer
neck.
sheet around your ankles. And
Yeah, stick a dryer sheet in your sock. I
And
don't
it'll
wear a
help.
bra, but I tied one on the back of the chair, and that works pretty well.
you can tie it on your belt loop too.
Yeah, I can tie it on the belt loop.
Yep. I don't remember where we heard that from, but we tried it one summer, and it worked pretty well while we were camping.
Yep, doing it ever since. I'm going camping for 10 days here, starting day after tomorrow, and I will take dryer sheets with me. And, they're not exactly period from 1840, but inside my tent, that's my problem. I do want to tell you something really interesting. We don't have horse apples here in South Florida. No, it's not what you think. Horse apples is what Southerners call the fruit of the Osage orange, Maclura pomifera. And my mother is from Texas. So when we moved into our house up in Louisiana and we went out exploring, we came back with these huge grapefruit-sized, pebbly-looking fruit.
Green and lumpy, right?
Green and lumpy, yes. And what's this for? And my mother went, well, that's a horse apple. Oh, okay. And when the new development that we just bought a house in started being invaded by ants, as the cycle of life had been altered, she said, go back to wherever you found those and bring me some. And we went out and brought her some, and she sliced them in half and put them in the corners of the house, and boom, magically all the ants were gone.
So they don't like the horse apple.
They don't like the horse apples. They're drawn to them, and they're poisonous. And before somebody contacts us and says, no, horse apples aren't really poisonous. Yeah. You have to slice them, rot them, then work your fingers into the rotting stuff, pull out the seeds, which are about eraser-sized in there, wash them off carefully, and those you can eat. I don't go to that much work. Everything else about the fruit is poisonous. The matrix in which those little seeds are formed is poisonous, and it's very poisonous to insects.
Well, a lot of people have pets.
Yeah.
Are their pets going to go over and lick those things?
Not twice.
Not twice. And it won't hurt them to lick it once?
No.
Okay.
No, it's not that dangerous.
Has a really nasty taste then?
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Kind of acidic and everything.
Well, before I get emails, I just figured I'd ask.
But the thing is, well, okay, to reassure you, I don't think it's horses that eat them. I think it's cattle, but it could be horses. All I can tell you is the natural range of the Osage orange was 130 or so miles from my house, was the eastern edge of the natural range of the Osage orange. Now, before people in Kentucky and Tennessee say, hey, wait a minute, we have them here, you've got them there because the American Indians spread the range on them. The natural range of the Osage orange is actually basically North Texas and a little bit up into Missouri. Yeah, Texas and Missouri, in that area. But the American Indians, since they made their bows out of them, and since you can cut a wand from it, that is, you can cut a sucker piece off of it in the wintertime, transport it, shove it in the ground in the spring, and boom, it'll root and grow.
Kind of like gumbo limbo.
Well, yeah, kind of like gumbo limbo down here, but I'm really thinking the mulberry. It's in the mulberry family. It's a moraceae, and that's the way we propagate mulberries as well. You just cut a winter wand on it, stick it in the soil, and come spring it puts out roots and starts growing. They used to make hedges. The reason my mother was familiar with the tree was because that's how you made fences out in a lot of Texas. People would sell you 1,000 6-foot wands, and you take those wands, you shove them in the ground every 3 feet, and you bend them in time to the one next to it, and the one next to it, and the one next to it. In a couple of years, you have a fence line that no buffalo will go through, much less a cow.
Was that mulberry or Osage orange?
That's Osage orange.
Ah, okay.
Because they've got wicked thorns on them, and it's tough as nails and very strong.
But the cattle like to eat the fruit.
Cattle or horses, there's probably a reason they call them horse apples, but at any rate, where we had this naturally occurring stand of Osage orange was immediately next to what at one time had been a ferry crossing. I lived along the Red River, Ferry.
Okay, I thought you meant F-A-I-R-Y.
All right, dear, get over it.
Okay.
It was a natural ferry crossing, and, if the animals ate those fruit, and they were transshipped, and then they were held. They bring them on this side of the river to where the docks are for the river boats, and they would put them in pens for a few days, and fertilized seed would fall out.
Right.
And in later years, the pens were gone, the river boats were gone, the bridges came along, but the Osage oranges remained.
Huh.
And so there was a naturally propagating area of Osage orange right around that spot, even though it was way out of the normal range of the Osage.
Well, that makes sense, because a lot of fruits are spread by animals
exactly that
eating
way.
Them. Yep.
Yeah, but very familiar with them. So I know this podcast goes out to people that aren't just here in South Florida. So if you're somewhere where they have Osage orange, those things aren't just a nuisance. They're really great for insect control. Now let's talk about ants. One of the reasons this is getting brought up is my beehives were being bothered by ants. And so I needed to treat for ants around there, and I certainly didn't want to use anything unnatural. And when I went on beekeeping websites and asked the question, what do you do about ants? The answer came from all directions. You take powdered cinnamon and you sprinkle it around the base, and it repels ants. Unfortunately, of course, it's outside. You have to reapply pretty regularly. So the long term,
every time it rains,
basically,
which is every couple of hours.
Yeah, down here. But the long term, of course, is to build a system where you have grease on the legs of the stand in a way that doesn't. But temporarily speaking, everybody had the same answer. You use cinnamon powder, which got me thinking, because for me, I would use diatomaceous earth for that sort of thing. You sprinkle diatomaceous earth for one thing. When it gets wet, when it dries out, it's still good. Still does the job. So I did a little bit of research just to make sure that the diatomaceous earth wasn't harmful to the bees. And basically bees don't spend, if it's on the dirt if it's washed off of the plants, they're not going to encounter it really. They may be up on the plants, but you're not spreading it on the plants. You're spreading it,
on the ground.
You might, if you're going to spread it and there's high grass around your beehives, you might want to water it in a little bit to get it washed off of the leaves of the grass. But bees aren't interested in grass anyway.
But how is that any good for people in a house?
Diatomaceous earth is great for people in a house because, there's all these substances you hear talk about. Oh, sprinkle talcum powder around your house. The ants won't cross it. Ant wrong. Sprinkle this, sprinkle that, sprinkle 10 different things. Well, you know what? If you sprinkle diatomaceous earth around the house, the ants cross it, but they die. So it's the same effect. They're not repelled by it. They stroll right across it. Only what they don't know is they've just executed themselves.
Don't tell us how.
Okay, you don't want to know how.
I don't really
Take my word
know.
for it. The diatomaceous earth is the best, most natural, safest for humans. You can buy food-grade diatomaceous earth. They use it for filters and everything else. But you can buy diatomaceous earth, roaches, ants, any creepy crawly that crawls across it is going to die. When we put in our new kitchen here, before the countertops went on, I liberally dosed everything behind all counters all the way around our new kitchen with diatomaceous earth, and it'll be there doing its job 30 years from now, just as effectively as it is today. If there's a break and it gets, if there's a leak in a faucet and it gets wet and we fix the faucet and everything dries out, it continues to do its job just as well.
Nice to know.
So diatomaceous earth, much more effective as an ant repellent. Now, but the best way to get rid of ants is usually to bait them. And for baiting ants, the other thing, which is an excellent barrier, is borax or boric acid. And you can sprinkle that out much the same way, but much more effective is to take a bit of the boric acid and mix it with a little bit of sugar and water to make a syrup, a thick syrup paste, basically. Mm-hmm. And you put that on little bits of cardboard or paper, and you tuck it into the corners. And the ants come out and they consume it and they take it back to the nest and it kills them. If after a week or so of taking your sugar baits, they suddenly aren't ignoring them and just walking around them, then you switch over to a little bit of grease, a little bit of bacon grease and boric acid, put that on a piece of paper and do it. One or the other is going to get them. And they change their preference for no discernible reason. They change their preference from time to time. Keep an eye out. When you see them traveling in a path, put a little bit next to the path. They'll divert to it. They'll start eating it, and they'll go. If that sounds too dangerous to you, you can also, instead of using boric acid, you can use activated dry yeast.
Oh, right, like Fleischmann's.
Like Fleischmann's dry yeast.
Yeah.
Yeah, buy the jar rather than the little packet for economy's sake. But you can mix dried yeast with sugar or water or dried yeast with grease and do the same thing. You mix it into a nice paste. You don't leave it lumpy, but they'll consume it, and it has the same effect.
And you also put it like on paper or cardboard?
You do it the same way you do the boric acid. You put it on a little bit of paper and tuck it into corners and such, and that works pretty well too.
Okay. Well, folks, before you think that I'm a little
overrun
squeamish.
With bugs?
No, well, before you think I'm a little squeamish, I've heard him tell exactly how bugs ingest something and what happens, and it's just a little too graphic. So, in the interest of keeping this a family-friendly, G-rated podcast, I'll just tell you this. If you really want to know, you can email Lord Riekin at RIEKIN01@gmail.com, and he will tell you in graphic detail with great relish exactly how each one of these methods kills the bugs. I'm just saving you.
Once an Orkin man, always an Orkin man.
I know. He's not really vicious. It's just, for some reason he takes this semi-evil delight in eliminating.
I just take glee, dear. That's all, just
glee.
Yeah.
And no, we are not overrun with bugs. It's just he's
I'm
really
very
good
at my job.
He's very good at his job. Very good.
Some of the things that you can put down temporarily in a pinch to get rid of some ants on the counter. The in-laws are coming over. You can put down powdered cinnamon, powdered cloves, coffee grounds, dried, preferably. Outside you can use wet, I guess.
I've also heard you can spray them with white vinegar.
yes, you can just spray them with white vinegar and kill them in the spot, but you don't want them coming out later. So spray them with white vinegar, wipe everything up, sprinkle a little bit, even talcum powder, baby powder, will be a temporary barrier. And it can smell good.
True.
So there's lots and lots. If you look online, you'll see all kinds of stuff. These are mostly some things that we've had practical experience with and work real well. Apple cider vinegar is your friend. White vinegar is your friend for cleaning. And I can easily, if I'm going to make Five Thieves vinegar, I'll do it with apple cider vinegar. But if I were going to use the vinegar for cleaning, I would make it using white vinegar. You don't like the smell of vinegar too much, so we don't clean the vinegar around here.
Yeah, not that much. I'm much more partial to the stuff that doesn't smell. Like I noticed that the yeast and the oil.
Yeah, they don't smell.
It doesn't smell, and the borax mixture doesn't smell. So right. I'm okay with that. Anyways, thank you very much again, Lord Riekin, for sharing your expertise with us.
You're quite welcome. Have a good evening and have a joyous Imbolc, everyone.
Blessed be.
Blessed be.
Hello and welcome to FooDoo. Happy Imbolc. So I spent the last couple of days looking at recipes that are in one way or another centered on Imbolc. And what I learned in my survey of websites is that we should be making lemon poppy seed muffins. That's right, lemon poppy seed muffins. One site suggested that I could make lemon poppy seed sour cream pound cake. That's right. Or as I like to call that recipe, lemon poppy seed sour cream eggs, flour, and sugar pound cake, because why should we stop at 3 ingredients? So the poppy seed, besides giving you false positive drug tests and bouts of diverticulitis to the susceptible, is associated with Demeter and Persephone, as well as used in rites for the dead. The Romans, for example, used it that way. And that's not sounding very springtime, but whatever. In Hellenic religion, Demeter does bring the poppy from Crete to the Eleusinian priesthood as part of her rites and mysteries. And in Crete, there is a poppy seed goddess, a bringer of sleep and death, whose images are depicted with raised hands. It's still not sounding very springy, rebirthy, but I'll take it as the poppy seed symbolizing the potential for life emerging. And in folk remedies, they did use the poppy seeds for aiding sleep, promoting fertility, and gaining wealth, in which case I'll have a double scoop. Anyway, back to the poppy seed muffin. So, I don't have a thing about lemon poppy seed muffins, but they don't taste anything like lemon poppy seeds. They just basically boil down to muffins that taste vaguely lemon-like with little black things that you can pick out of your teeth an hour later or distract you while driving as you attempt cheek cleaning with your tongue. So it's not that I'm not a fan of lemon poppy seed muffins, it's that most lemon poppy seed muffins should really just be called muffins with black things. But let's stay with the poppy seed theme for this and get rid of the muffin part for now. In my opinion, the Italians as well as the Eastern European cultures like Slavs and Ashkenazi Jews really know how to deal with the poppy seed. And I think it's interesting to explore that as an ingredient. In fact, they use poppy seeds so well that when you eat something with poppy seeds, you think, wow, poppy seeds! Not, oh, it's a muffin with gum torture. And while the poppy seed might make it look pretty, they really don't care about pretty, they care about taste. So I thought that rather than going through a recipe, let's learn to prepare the poppy seed as an ingredient to be used in your favorite recipe, like the muffin one, so that whatever you make tastes like poppy seeds. And if you add lemon, like lemon zest, whatever you make will taste like lemon and poppy seeds. So the first thing is to locate some poppy seeds. The poppy seeds that we find in the U.S. are generally either black, white, or blue-gray. The white is the hardest, I think, to find. It's usually used as a thickener in Indian cuisine, and they're really not used for their flavor at all. The blue mostly comes from Holland and the Mediterranean, and it's viewed as having the best flavor. And the black poppy seeds are actually blue ones. They just have a variant that makes them appear darker. So for this recipe, you'll need about half a pound of poppy seeds, which is a lot, for building ultimately the cream ingredient that can go into other things. And the first step is actually to process the seeds in batches. The easiest tool for this is a coffee grinder. If you actually grind coffee or other spices, clean the grinder completely, thoroughly before and after. I actually have a separate coffee grinder for spices that I bought for $6 at a thrift store. So you might want to check a thrift store, see if they have one. It's always good to have one of these grinders around, because if you grind the spices there, you don't have to worry about any flavor leakage into the coffee. So you grind the seeds. And by the way, you can use a pestle for this. If you use a pestle for this, you probably won't have to go to the gym that day, because you'll be grinding the seeds for half the day and then cleaning the spillage for the remaining hours of daylight. Anyway, you want them powdered but not pulverized. You want to get them to a state of roughly like a course meal. And then when you have that ready, just put it aside. So in a saucepan, heat 1 cup of milk with half a stick of unsalted butter, a pinch of salt, and 3/4 cup of sugar. We're going to bring that to, not quite to a boil, but we're going to heat it until the sugar starts to dissolve. Then take out about 1 ladle spoon of that milk mixture and add it to 2 beaten eggs that have been brought to room temperature beforehand. Mix that together and then return that egg mixture to the saucepan. What we've done here is to temper the eggs so that they won't curdle as you add them to the heated milk. And then we're going to stir that new mixture together under low heat until it starts to thicken and then ultimately coats the back of a spoon in a way that you can draw a line through it. What we've made here is something called a crème anglaise. If you wanted to finish it as a crème anglaise, you would add 1 teaspoon of vanilla and it would be good to go. But we're not doing that. We're adding the poppy seeds. So we're going to take the pulverized processed poppy seeds, or I should say the processed poppy seeds that aren't pulverized, and we're going to add them to the crème anglaise mixture, and we're going to stir them until they are fully blended. The mixture will turn dark, if not black, and then we're going to remove it from the heat and let that cool for a few minutes. Then we can pour it into a separate container, or you can just leave it in the saucepan. But either way, what you want to do is to cover it with plastic wrap and kind of push that plastic wrap all the way until it touches the surface of the cream. What this does is that it ultimately prevents the skin from forming, and you can use the cream exactly as it is, and you don't have to worry about any hard bits towards the top. Let the mixture sit in the refrigerator for at least 6 hours, preferably 12, so that the flavors infuse throughout it. And what this ultimately does is also soften the poppy seeds and then fortify that flavor throughout. The cream will also have this really beautiful black color, and you can use it as well to make things pretty, even though it will taste amazing. So from this cream, which is now an ingredient, you can make kolaches, you can make hamantaschen, you can make filled cookies. You can even use it as a dressing for a sweet pasta dessert, which is actually fairly easy to make. You just take any kind of pasta, but preferably a very thick pasta, boil it normally, and then just add this poppy seed ingredient to it, and possibly with a sprinkling of brown sugar or honey, and it tastes amazing. And some of us, of course, have been known to eat it just like it is. Anyway, you can even use it for your favorite dessert, and even the ones for muffins, even lemon poppy seed muffins, the ones that will taste like poppy seeds, but actually now won't attack you. So, happy kitchen witching, and have a blessed Imbolc.
Hi everyone. Before we begin our last segment of this episode, we'd like to thank you for listening. Putting a podcast together is a time-consuming labor of love. But knowing that someone is listening to our hard work and hopefully gaining something from it makes it worthwhile. Would you let us know you like the podcast? By going to our website at emlc.net, click on the podcast tab, and write a comment. Tell us what you like and what you'd like to hear more of on our podcast. And even better, why not leave us a rating on iTunes? Ratings help us become more visible to more people. It's not about ego, it's all about service. Thank you, and blessed be.
And now for our last song. One of my favorites, Ganesh is Fresh, by Ginger Doss. And you can learn more about Ginger Doss and purchase her music at gingerdoss.com. Have a wonderful Imbolc, everyone. Blessed be.
All right, y'all, does everybody know who Ganesh is? Yes, baby. All right, this is kind of fun, so let's do it. Break it down, babies. For Ganesh is fresh. Ganesh is so fresh, chilling on his throne, surrounded by incense, fruit and gold, with a heap of sweets piled in his bowl. He guards the gate and protects the threshold. When you're blessed by Ganesh, you can travel on a sacred journey to an inner temple. He paves the way that leads to your soul, and he's known for removing all obstacles. Now some may think it's illogical, a myth or just philosophical, but Ganesh makes everything possible, because elephant power's unstoppable. Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha. To the God of all wisdom, loved by all children, known for blessing the homes that we live in, the Lord of all creatures with divine features, inspiring the minds of all true seekers. To the son of Shiva and Parvati, with an elephant's head and a fat belly, with a snake for a belly to hold up his pants. He rides on a mouse and he loves to dance, with a lotus unfolding inside one of his hands, and an axe to attack all ignorance, a broom to remove all hindrance, and a noose to reduce all selfishness. He writes the pages while the sages chant, dropping ancient Vedic science so we can comprehend all the many ways that we can transcend. Singing Jai to Ganesh, he's a yoga's best friend. Come Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha. So if you think Ganesh is super fresh, when I say Jai, you say Ganesh. Go Jai, 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 Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha. I pray to Ganesh to take away the stress and pave the way to the place that's best. Centered in the chest where the breath is felt. When you're blessed by Ganesh, then the stress can melt. He destroys the knots that confine your thoughts. He dissolves all walls and breaks the blocks. He unlocks the door to the sacred core, and he guards the gate at the pelvic floor. The benevolent elephant is so intelligent. At the base of the spine, he's an earth element. He's a ruler of the Muladhara chakra. His brother rides a peacock and his name is Skanda. He's a son of Uma and Mahadeva. I offer this puja to my homie Ganesha, to the son of Parvati and Mahesh, dedicated to Ganesh cause he's so fresh, so fresh. Ganesha, Jai Ganesha, yeah. Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha. When I say Jai, you say Ganesh. Go Jai, 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 Jai. Ganesh is fresh. Oh, Ganesh is fresh. Ganesh is fresh. Ganesh is fresh. Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha. Everybody, Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha, Jai